Welcome back to Askewed Reviews, and as I'm doing so throughout the year, I'm going through the entire Disney animated collection, and this does include the movies that are half animated and half live action. So today's movie is the 1946 film Song of the South. Here is your trivia question for today. Which animated character does Uncle Remus go fishing with? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So, in some of my other Disney reviews, you may have noticed a segment near the end called The Dark Side of Disney. But I'm putting it right here at the beginning, mainly due to the fact that normally this segment is about terrible and horrible things related to the film, but with this movie, it's just the entire film. So, in the film Song of the South, we meet a family, a mother and father named Sally and John, and their boy Johnny. They are all moving to a Georgia plantation that Johnny's grandmother owns. Now, also on this plantation are a lot of African Americans that, because it's the Reconstruction era, have been recently freed. Although, let's be honest, while watching this, it doesn't exactly feel that way. Now, it is quickly revealed that Johnny and Sally are going to be living here, but John is actually going to be heading back to where they came from to continue his job of being a newspaper editor for at least a little bit more. Johnny becomes quite upset by this and decides to run away. While doing so, he ends up running into a storyteller named Uncle Remus. So Uncle Remus realizes what Johnny is trying to do and decides to take it upon himself to teach him some knowledge with some folk tales about the local animals in the area, like Briar Rabbit, Briar Fox, and Briar Bear. So will Uncle Remus's stories, along with befriending one of the local boys and local girls, give Johnny some patience to wait for his father to come back. This movie is actually based off of African American tales that were recorded by historian Joel Chandler Harris. All of these tales were actually from the Reconstruction era, which is where this movie takes place in. The original working title for the film was Uncle Remus. It was also originally going to be fully animated. The film premiered in Atlanta, Georgia, but James Baskett, who played the character of Uncle Remus, did not appear as Atlanta was still racially segregated at the time. Baskett wouldn't have been allowed to participate in festivities, so he just didn't show up. Walt Disney, who was at the premiere, did not stick around to the end, and apparently this ended up being a good thing as the reactions from the crowd were not good. Had this film actually been successful, Disney did have plans of turning this into an Uncle Remus franchise. So even though the film was not considered a success, there were two successful things that came out of it. Number one was the song Zippity Doo Dah, which for quite some time was one of Disney's most popular songs. Unfortunately, it does have a very dark history if you really look into it. The other successful thing to come out of this film was one of Disneyland and Disney World's most popular rides, known as Splash Mountain. The vast majority of the animated characters from the film would actually interact with you throughout the ride. But recently, due to all of the racial issues with these stories, they eventually did convert this over to Tiana's Bayou Adventure. The new ride has you now interact with characters from The Princess and the Frog. So the film did originally release in theaters in 1946, and then it was also shown in 1972, 1973, 1980, and the last time in 1986. Song of the South has never officially been released on home video in the United States of America. Now, the movie will go into public domain in 2039. Disney will lose all copyright to it if it doesn't get released again in theaters, on Blu ray or DVD, or on streaming before then. James Baskett plays the character of Uncle Remus. This was unfortunately his final film, as he passed away in 1948. Baskett was only in his early 40s during this film, but that was actually his gray hair. Other actors that were also up for the role of Uncle Remus were Paul Robeson, Rex Ingram, and Clarence Muse. If you didn't know, Baskett also did the voice for Briar Fox. Also, while Johnny Lee, the voice of Briar Rabbit, was out doing promotions, Baskett also got to voice Briar Rabbit for the Laughing Place segment and sing that song. This wasn't the first time that James Baskett and Nick Stewart, who did the voice of Briar Bear, were involved with Disney. In fact, both of them were actually voices of two of the crows in Dumbo. Now, Song of the South would not be the only time these animated characters would actually show up for Disney. In the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you can actually see Briar Bear, the hummingbirds, and the three mole sisters. Technically, in that film, there's even one more additional character from Song of the South that only appears briefly, but it's this one right here, and I won't actually say their name, as I could potentially have this video taken down for doing so. But if you know, you know. Rabbit, Fox, and Bear would also all appear on an episode of Disney's House of Mouse. And then, of course, there's also the silhouette of Briar Bear that appears in Lion King 1.5. This movie was also the first time that Disney child stars Bobby Driscoll and Luana Patton worked together. The live action scenes for this movie were filmed in Arizona and California. So when it comes to the film Song of the South, the movie is of course embroiled in quite a bit of racial insensitivity. But the one thing I will say in defense of it, the blending of the live action and cartoon was pretty good in my opinion. Uncle Remus's reactions towards the cartoon characters seemed pretty realistic. So I'm going to give this movie a 2 out of 5. Now it's time for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. Which animated character does Uncle Remus go fishing with? So it's none of the Briar characters, it's just one called Bullfrog. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. And if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.